Guys, what's going on? It is Ash here coming at you today with a special news video. We have the balance changes announced a little bit early, so they will be going in-game on the usual first Monday of the month, which is March 4th, but today we're going to talk about them. I'm going to give you my opinion, and there's not a ton of changes, but I have a lot of opinions on them. Some of them are pretty outside the box and dramatic, so let's go ahead and jump right into it, starting with, you might have noticed it in the title and the thumbnail, but it's the Barbarians. There is now 5 Barbarians. That's an even 1 Barbarian per 1 elixir for you guys in the Barbarian card. So a buff to the Barbarian card. We'll talk about why in just a moment, because that's not all. There's also a nerf to the solo Barbarian. Every Barbarian in the game is going to be seeing a 13% HP nerf. So that's a nerf to Barbarian Barrel, Battle Ram, and Barbarian Hut, while it's a buff to the regular Barbarians. So I like this kind of meeting in the middle. Now the reasoning behind this is really fourfold. We have number 1, to nerf the Battle Ram and the Barbarian Barrel, which are really strong right now inside the game. Number 2 is to buff the Barbarians, we just talked about that. Number 3 is to support cards like Magic Archer and Royal Hogs, which are big spell bait, give another a viable option in the Barbarians that can bait out a big spell. And the 4th and final reason behind this is to give an anti-tank option other than just Mini P.E.K.K.A, Lumberjack, and P.E.K.K.A to people out there that's a ground unit like the Barbarians. So hopefully, at least in Supercell's eyes, this will make Barbarians viable in the game for the first time since, what, beta launch? And at the same time, it's also going to provide a nerf to those cards that certainly need it. Next up on the list is wall breakers. So who saw this coming, right? I mean, I think yours truly said it, that the wall breakers are not that great of a card, but they are buffing them. They're giving them a pretty substantial, a pretty big buff, and they're changing the hit speed from 1.5 to 1.2. Now, what does that really mean? It means that if unanswered, they will both now connect to the tower to do damage. How much damage? Well, they're gonna do the same amount of damage, basically with a slight variation of how much an unanswered Goblin Barrel does to the tower. So be careful. Now, maybe, just maybe, they might actually be meta or viable, but time will tell. Time will tell on that card. I'm going to give my opinion on all these cards after I list down the balance changes. Number 3 is the Bomb Tower. So the Bomb Tower is finally getting a really substantial buff, and I think a lot of people have been calling for a buff like this. Not the Bomber, though. We're not going to go that far. They're never going to buff the Bomber, right? Pretty much, never. I don't think it's going to happen. But the Bomb Tower finally seeing a little bit of love. It now drops a bomb upon its death, just like the balloon does. As a matter of fact, it's very similar to the balloon mechanic. Has a 3-second delay, just like the death bomb of the balloon. It just does a little bit more damage than the balloon death damage does. So everything else stays the same about the Bomb Tower, except for now it drops a big bomb that does area effect damage. Again, slightly more, 3 seconds, but slightly more damage than the regular balloon. And then we have the Expo. The Expo is seeing a 4% HP increase, and basically the reasoning behind that is because its siege brother-in-arms, the mortar, is seeing a little bit more action and has higher win rates right now. So to even out the 2 siege options out there, Supercell decided to basically give that HP buff and then even its health per elixir out with the mortar. So obviously you do the math. It's going to be similar to the mortar now. So every elixir that you pay, the 6 elixir, you're getting that hit points value in the Expo compared to the mortar. And then last on the list, guys, we actually have a, remember that minion horde rework, buff, nerf? It's definitely a nerf. That nerf to the minion horde, but it was very subtle, where they made every one of those minions spawn like 0.15 seconds apart now instead of all at the same time. Well, they're extending that, and they're extending it in a big way. That's where we circle back to the Barbarians. Now they will be a staggered spawn similar to the minion horde, but it's not just Barbarians, it's also bats. It's not just bats, it's also Rascals. It's not just bats and Rascals and Barbarians, it's also Goblin Gang. So Goblin Gang, Rascals, bats, and Barbarians will all have a staggered deploy time or deploy configuration similar to the minion horde. What this essentially does is give a little bit longer for the opponent to react to these swarmy type cards. And that's it, guys. Those are the balance changes. So what are my opinions? Well, I think that these balance changes were actually pretty good. I can't say that I disagree with any of the balance changes, and I applaud Supercell for reworking the Barbarians in the outside-the-box way that they did. They didn't change the card, but they were able to somehow buff Barbarians slightly and nerf the Barbarian slightly to accommodate all of the Barbarian cards in the game. I like that. I like the Bomb Tower. Wall Breakers obviously needed a buff, even though I'm still not a big fan of the actual card. Expo, whatever, I'm okay with it. And the other cards, the Swarm changes, I guess I'm fine with that as well. So what about the cards that we didn't see inside this balance change? No nerf to maybe Prince, no nerf to maybe Mortar, no nerf to Bandit, perhaps? I guess those are cards that are seeing a lot of use right now that I'm surprised they haven't addressed yet, but I guess in all of those scenarios, I'm okay with it, I guess. I don't know. I don't feel like passionately like they need to buff Bandit. It's ruining the game. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I'll throw it to you guys. Which cards would you like to see them nerf that they did not address in these balance changes? And on the other side, the buff end, I don't know. I feel like Zappies still could use some love, but you could probably make that case about a number of different cards inside the game, right? I mean, Zappies, maybe Dark Prince, certainly Elite Barbarians need some sort of a rework. We've been saying that for a couple years now. And also a Bomber. Are they ever going to touch Bomber, as I said earlier? Probably not. I don't know. And also the Royal Hogs. I could see them and maybe Magic Archer getting a little bit of an actual stat buff and instead of trying to give the Barbarians viability to be an extra Fireball, aka or Poison, excuse me, bait card. So I guess that's kind of how I feel about the balance changes. I would have liked to see maybe a couple different additions to the list, but the list that we do have, I'm totally cool with. So those are my thoughts, guys. I'm anxious to hear what you think of the balance changes. That's why, as always, I'm going to post a community poll in my community tab here on YouTube for you guys to go ahead and give a grade to Supercell. What do you think of these balance changes? That poll will be live about an hour after this video is live if you want to check back. And as always, I'll have the first update and balance update and April update information for you guys the second it is available to share here on the channel. So make sure you subscribe and turn on that notification bell so you don't miss out on the news of the day inside Clash Royale. So with that, guys, I'll see you in the comments below. A huge shout out to Stats Royale and to Bren Chong, my YouTube partners. Check out their information as well in the show notes below. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care, guys.